let me use the opportunity to welcome Mark Leckey.
I think it's easiest if we go along the lines of the exhibition. The exhibition has a pretty clear layout. It comes in 4 chapters, and maybe we talk a bit about these 4 chapters. Shall we start from the beginning?
What, me?
Perhaps.
Yes, thank you. Well, when you go upstairs, you are going to enter into. I don't want to spoil the surprise. There's a surprise in store. Once you get over the surprise, then you'll see. Well, the first room is kind of being described as being autobiographical, and it kind of came out of this film that I'm in the middle of. It's not a film; it's a video. There's a video I'm in the middle of making, which is it's kind of my memoirs. I'm trying to make my memoirs out of essentially found footage. I'm trying to reconstruct my life using other people's lives, because it seemed possible. It seemed possible with the amount of archive material out there that you could do this. So I kind of thought I'd try and remake myself using this, all the stuff that's available online and the rest. And then you come out of that room and you go into a room full of. I'm just spoiling surprises, aren't I? It's room full of sound systems, and later on I'm going to play some sounds through the systems, and then after that there is a room with a fridge that is sitting in a green infinity site, a kind of green space, like a chroma key. So this fridge could potentially be anywhere, anytime, any place. And the fridge, I basically, it's me ventriloquizing the thoughts of the fridge, because it's a smart fridge. It's a smart fridge. And then you go through there, and then there's a room that I've said is called the Zoo Vid Tech. So that's zoo, animals, visual, video, tech, as in a glyptotech. Is that what you say, a glyptotech? So I kind of, so they're sort of sculptures that have animals in them that are moving. So zoo, vid, tech. And there's a group of animals performing for you, and then at the back there's some pictures, because it's quite overstimulating. So you might just want to see some quiet pictures as you get to the back. It's like a palate cleanser, and then you can go and see David's show.
Very good. Okay, everything's been said. No, let's start from the beginning. The section that we start with in the exhibition, it's an autobiographical section in the widest sense, although in your case, autobiography doesn't necessarily mean that it relates to material that is produced by yourself, but rather, as you said, that you compile material that other people have been sharing, that's been out there in the world on different channels, on different media. In a way, this very new video called My Album, a rough demo video, which refers to the fact that it's still in production and that it will be completed at some point this year, and we're showing a demo version of it, relates back to your earliest videos in many senses. 2 of which we are showing. I mean, Are You Waiting? A very short clip of a man dancing frenetically, which you've recently remade into an LED screen, and then Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore, this very crucial piece in your career, which kind of kicked off your career. Could you maybe talk about Fiorucci and how Fiorucci came into being?
So Fiorucci, it's called Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore, and it's a found footage video of all the kind of sort of subcultures of dance that evolved through the United Kingdom from the 1970s to the 1990s that I was kind of either involved with or remember. I've kind of memories of. And it's called Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore because Fiorucci was, at the time when I was a young scally, Fiorucci was a label, Italian jeans label, and what the title means is that something is kind of, trivial or ephemeral, and even crassly commercial as a jeans label could be invested with such kind of meaning and belief and kind of symbolism that it makes it's kind of like hardcore means that you're a believer. You believe in the truth of this thing, even though the truth of this thing is essentially inauthentic. It's just more crap. But you've said that crap is worth something in a kind of alchemical, transmutating way.
Yeah.
You've turned shit into gold. That's kind of what that means.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of history of dance, but from a very subjective position.
Yeah, and I think just to explain, Fiorucci is around 15 minutes long as a video, and it's compiled entirely from found footage material from documentaries on Northern Soul movement until the raves of the 1990s. And the interesting thing is that although it comes from this very subjective point of view, from this very personal point of view, in the sense that you were partly involved, some of the dance or music movements were just prior to your youth, so you just were basically reminiscing these musical styles, and then you're compiling all this material, and suddenly it becomes not only your homage to these movements, but it really becomes like a mapping out or an essay on a wider youth phenomenon in a general sense. And I think this is really something that is very true for many of your works, that they may well come from a very personal or very subjective point of view, but at the same time open up to a much wider cultural discourse that is reflected in your work. Maybe if we could go to my album directly, because you're compiling material, but of course the approach of compiling this material has changed quite a bit over the last 15 years,
yes,
or nearly 20 since you started working on Fiorucci until today.
Well, we were talking about it earlier, there's they're both kind of archive films, but in the sense of the accessibility of archive material, that within that 20 years, it's enormous. I had to get the footage for Fiorucci, I had to write letters to people, and they had to post me videotapes. And obviously now, all this stuff is just within fingertip reach. It's just there. So there's an enormous difference in the way, I think that makes a difference, rather, that you treat the material differently. When I made Fiorucci, it was much more precious, and now the stuff I'm getting doesn't really have a inherent value anymore. It's not, I'm not looking for rarities, because I think now, in a sense, nothing is really rare. Everything that was hidden or occluded is now available. Mm-hmm. So,
did that change much for you in the terms of how you could approach my album? I mean, how you relate to doing this film?
Yeah, I think it makes it much more. Like I say, you're less precious with the material, and it's more you're making, they're both collages, but in one sense, the collage is more you're working with gold leaf, and now you're just using, newspaper. It's the, you know what I mean? The value of the stuff is kind of significantly reduced. Mm-hmm. So that means that you just have much more of it, And so it's a kind of process of eliminate. Basically, I think now you gather a database, you gather all this masses and masses of material on your desktop, and then you start to kind of you start to edit through that, and you start to whittle that down, and that's the process of editing in itself, of making now, I think. It's a kind of weird... and also it means that you can put very disparate things together, you know, that it's astonishing. You've got, you know, the reach of what you can access is kind of astonishing. So you're continually kind of I am in a state of being kind of overawed by the sheer amount of stuff.
Yeah. Maybe to talk about one aspect that is really crucial in your work is the relation to music. I mean, that's something that you really brought to the fore with Fiorucci, and it's very visible not only on the level of imagery and sound in the exhibition, but really in terms of the physical presence of the technical devices to produce music or to distribute music and make music available. Maybe you could talk a bit about, well, the role of music in your work, how that came into your work, or what it triggers for you, and why you're still always coming back to this idea of sound and music within your exhibitions.
Okay. I think there's kind of two reasons. One is that I grew up immersed in music. You know, it's music's always been there. It's always been in my life in the way that it's been in most people. You know, it's ubiquitous. And I guess the second aspect of that is to do with the first, which is that there's I'm going to show off and quote a Victorian critic called Walter Pater, who said that all art aspires to the condition of music. You know, and I kind of, yeah, it does.
In which sense? in how far does it?
I guess it's to do with its ubiquity and its kind of, and its accessibility, and its its emotional registers. Yeah, it can move you. It can terrify you. It can make you dance even if you don't want to. You know, it's got a power, and it's a power that everyone can grasp. Whereas with art, it feels more elusive and more as if you feel like you need to educate yourself in order to understand it. I mean, I don't have that. I mean, there's some music that's very difficult that you need to kind of educate yourself in, but you know, there's that. Music's democratic in that sense, and I don't necessarily always want art to be democratic, but I wish more that the art that I make was more. No, what am I trying to say? It's more, you know, I just find that there's a kind of, you know, you see groups here, they come in and they sit around a painting, and, you know, you're trying to understand baselits, you know, and you're sitting there going, the only question I'd be asking is, why are they upside down, you know, but yet you're afraid to ask that question, or you feel that question is stupid. And you don't have that with music. Music just, you know, it affects you, it permeates you, and it's just on that level that I think that all art aspires to the condition of music, or should do.
Yeah.
I think.
Maybe just to give away a little bit of the surprise, the sound systems, it's the first time that we actually were able to bring together all the 5 sound systems that you've built. So it's really sound systems that produce sound. They stand in the space as if they were monoliths, but at the same time they really start engaging the audience. They address us, they talk to us, they talk to other works in the exhibition. They're connected through a network.
Yes.
In the exhibition. So what kind of idea is it to have this additional sensual level in the show?
Sensual.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extra, it's yet another sense, and it's very physical. I mean, they have strong bases, so they really affect the body in a very direct way.
I think with all of the stuff that's upstairs, it's all about, I mean, what I've just talked about, the condition of music is about a sensuality, right? It's that's what I want to experience, you know. It's with the sound systems, I want to be overawed by their mass, by their scale, and by the physical, the sound, the physical sound they're generating, the low bass that you feel vibrate in your rib cage, and all the other sounds that they produce, you know, on all different registers and all different emotional states. So, you know, to see the things that are producing the music, and those things are very present and very visible. They're not discrete. It kind of lends it another power, I think. I think you have to kind of you have to stop and listen rather than the way you normally listen, which is kind of as a kind of you know, there's something else that's going on in your day. We've been doing this all day. It's quite exhausting.
Nevertheless, it continues to be good. Mark, the sound systems are connected to other work in the exhibition, and over the past years, starting with probably in the long tail, you've been investigating a lot into the idea of networking, into the idea of like the internet as one thing, but then the Internet of Things and the communication between different objects that kind of engage in a conversation that might not even necessarily have us as human beings as interlocutors.
Right.
Is that a good way to put it, or?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
No, but I only hesitate because I don't. You know, I can only. There's a kind of philosophy doing the rounds at the moment that talks about an idea of human access, and you know, I can only have human access. I mean, the things I'm doing they're not machines talking, they're not objects speaking, they're just me pretending to be them. I'm just mimicking them, or like a ventriloquist. So it's not, you know, that's all I can do. But I think to mimic something, I mean, not to caricature it, but to mimic it is obviously is about a kind of respect. And so these objects kind of demand a respect. You have to approach them respectfully, you know.
Yeah, which I think brings us directly to the green screen, because there, I mean, we have the smart fridge in the center of a green screen curve, so in a film set basically, which means if you were filming the fridge in this green screen, you could basically key in whatever image you would. And it's a smart fridge. It's supposed to be an intelligent device. It's supposed to know us, to know our needs. And that is something you took quite literally in this work, no?
Quite literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's you know, it's one of these promised fridges that will eventually be able to text you back recipes based on the contents of your fridge, right? This is the idea of the Internet of Things, that these things will be able to kind of serve you in this kind of way, serve all your needs, and you know, there's something at that point where machines, technology becomes magical. I mean, I was saying this before, but I think there's a moment, there's a kind of moment of disbelief or uncertainty. I think that's what the title of the show kind of means. It's like as if a fridge could talk, as if this could be, as if in the same way that in a fairy tale a fox can talk, or a rock can talk, or a tree can talk. Now we have fridges that can talk, and I find that a very confusing state between high tech you know, and this kind of idea of kind of technology advancing towards this kind of technically determined future, but then it boomerangs back to this kind of more archaic state of thinking where everything is kind of alive and speaking and chatting, and, you know, the rocks and the trees are animated. So it's a weird. I find the technology of today quite kind of psychedelic. It kind of, I think it's definitely affecting my mind, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that the fridge is talking to us, it's a very sophisticated way. I mean, he's not rational in a way. He's not very, how shall I say, very neutral. He's embodied with the consciousness in a way, and he sees himself in a universal or in a cosmological network with Earth and Sun and Moon. So basically, as one part of a big universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I guess you'll be able to see it for yourself up there.
I don't. You know. I think. You know, what's that great line from The Simpsons? I for one acknowledge our overlords and look forward to the future. You know, it's kind of like I'm stealing a kind of. I think, you know, we have to adapt to a more kind of cybernetic future. You know, where we're sharing. The planet, the cosmos, with kind of intelligent devices, you know. I mean, that makes it sound like it's kind of science fiction, but it's more about the status of things. I think it's about the status of things changing, you know. As technology becomes more intelligent or more advanced, it kind of moves up the kind of ladder of you know, the great ladder of being, as the kind of you know, as the kind of medievalists would have it, you know, with God at the top and dirt at the bottom. It's kind of, you know, it's climbing the ladder, you know, and meets us halfway. Yeah. You know.
Maybe to talk about, I think that relates, I mean, these technological changes relate to something that you've been talking quite a bit over the last year, is the question of the relation between object and image, and how you can relate to objects only through the aid of images. And I think that's something that's pretty visible in the exhibition, and in particular in this last section in Zubit Tech, where we have sculptural objects, animals that are being animated, so they're transformed into an image, into a moving image, and at the same time they're placed on their pedestals, on their plinths. They have a very physical presence in the space. And I think what is really interesting when seeing your show is that there's a lot of movement between an image becoming a spatial object, for instance in the first space where we have materializations of your memories, for instance, as 3D objects, or the other way around, where we have objects that are being transformed into an image. So it's this constant moving back and forth in your works.
No, I'm just agreeing. It's about, you know, it's about trying to, you know, I make these things in order to be able to try and grasp them. To understand them in some way, or to kind of experience them. And, you know, I find it easier to experience an image than I do an object. You know,
Why that? I mean,
I don't know. It's not. I guess it's not clean enough in some way. It's, you know, I've been conditioned. You know, I've been conditioned by imagery. You know, by TV, by magazines, by cinema, and so this stuff just kind of doesn't. It's too kind of shabby. It doesn't register. You know, it's not crisp enough, I guess. You know, it's a problem. It's a you know, perceptual shift, I think, where you can't you spend so much time in front of screens that when you leave the screen and walk out into, the real world environment, it looks kind of drab and not right. It seems alienating, weirdly. So you get this weird inversion, and so it's that image object thing is just trying to make things graspable, knowable. There's a great word that came from a sci-fi writer, I can't remember his name, where he talks about to grok, G-R-O-K, and you kind of grok something. It means to kind of grasp something with the mind and with the body. You grasp something in its kind of totality, or the totality. You feel it, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to grok things,
which sounds like a very physical process, don't know? I find it interesting because you're always saying this about images, and I find it very interesting that the physicality of being able to grasp something, to really understand something in its condition, for me it's something very physical, and for you it's something that's two-dimensional, or that happens in the two dimensions.
It's a male-female thing.
Well, I don't know whether we should go there.
It's a kind of, I think there is an element to that, but I think it's a kind of, it's, it's like the value between, real things and natural things, the idea that somehow things on the internet, things behind screens or images are kind of synthetic and cold and metallic, and then there's warmth of wood, and I don't find that in the world. I enjoy the warmth of wood and other tactile surfaces, but equally I enjoy kind of images and shiny things.
Okay, I think for the time being I would actually leave it there, and just every one of you surely is going to see the exhibition and has the time to make up their minds about how they relate to these things, which I think will be very interesting to discuss afterwards. Before we let you go to the exhibition, a short announcement, because Mark quite spontaneously decided that he is going to do a short performance with the sound systems, which is really great. So at around 8:30, we might be up there in the galleries, and you and then I.
Yeah. This is very quick. This is, I get quite emotional at this stage. I actually, but it's see, I'm off. I can't do this bit.
Okay, don't worry.
No, I need to. It's just such a fantastic experience to be in a place like the Haus der Kunst and have all these people at your beck and call, helping and enthusiastically helping you put together this show that's existed in your imagination. So it always really, I find it very special. So I just want to thank everyone who worked on the team. I do this every time. I kind of crack up. I can't do it. It's been a long week. So big thanks. I don't know if they're here, but Tim, Flo, Adam, Magnus, Cassandra, Maritz, Roland, Glenn, Laura, Franz, Alois, Anton, Tina, who organised all the team, and of course, especially Patrizia, who's been fantastic, and Okwe for giving me the opportunity. So, just big thanks. It's great.